Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Phillies Talk Podcast. I am Jim Salisbury, joined today by Ruben Amaro, former Phillies general manager, former Phillies player, and he's done it all in this organization. And now he is an analyst for NBC Sports Philadelphia on the Phillies television broadcast. And I wanted to open up today, Ruben, by welcoming you to the media and to this side of the business. And here's what I mean.
To the dark side.
To the dark side, the people you used to hate. But I noticed something as the Phillies are going through this tailspin and you're there on the post-game show. I can feel the frustration. I can feel the anger. I can feel the despair, the emotion. And it struck me as I was, watching you recently, when you were the GM and your teams would go through difficult times like the Phillies are going through right now, you would always be a calm exterior. You try to maintain a serene front, because I think a leader of an organization has to do that when all hell is breaking loose. So I wanted to ask you, okay, what's real when you're a GM? Are you just stifling frustration and anger, or now are we seeing what the real guy looks like?
Probably a little bit of both. I'm a pretty emotional guy, as you know. You've known me for a long time, Jim, and so I do tend to be a little emotional. Pat Gillick said sometimes gets a little emotional, but yeah, there are some times up there in that box where I got very upset about things, and then there's other times where you just kind of slough it off. I mean, it is what it is, and I think the emotions that you see right now from me, as far as an analyst is concerned, I think it's about being a fan. I love the Phillies. I've grown up a Philly. My dad was a Philly. I mean, the history. But the reality of it is I want the Phillies to do well. I want them to have success. And it doesn't matter what regime. It doesn't matter what time frame. I mean, I'm Philadelphia born and bred, and I want the Phillies to do well. I want the Eagles to do well. I want the Sixers and the Flyers. But most notably, I want the Phillies to do well. And when they're not playing well, they're not doing things well, it makes me upset.
Back in the day when you were the Phillies GM and you would be upset upstairs in the box after a poor game, and maybe I would see you in the hallway or in the clubhouse or something, you would have to be like, okay, here comes that pain in the ass. I have to look like I'm totally in control.
Yeah, but pretty much. I mean, there's sometimes you can talk to some of my lieutenants up there, some of the assistant GMs and some of the people I work with, Scott Profrock and Benny Looper and Pat and Mike Gondo, those guys. They've seen me get a little excited in the box and drop some F-bombs from time to time. But I think it's just because I care. It's because it means something to me, and I know it cares to the fans. And you see some of that emotion pop. But yeah, as far as when I'm dealing with the media, yeah, I try to stay calm. There are times when I get a little snippy. And I think there were times when people thought that I was being aloof or short with them at times. But that's just kind of part of my personality, and that, sometimes you get a little frustrated.
Yeah, and I think the key word there is care. You care. I actually, the media when you cover a team, you're supposed to be a detached observer. But I think you also have to care, because I think that brings passion to your coverage, whether you're an analyst or a writer or a podcaster. So I think you and the fans and everybody has a complete right to be very frustrated right now. What a first 19 or 20 days of August it has been here. I mean, the Phillies play great ball, the best ball of the season, to win 8 in a row, and they get over 500, and they actually get well over 500 and take a 2-game lead in the division. And they tear the cover off the ball during that 8-game winning streak, and that is followed by what we are in now, losing 7 of 9. I got them hitting 181 over these 9 games. I got them averaging 2.3 runs over these 9 games, and I got them with a total of 5 home runs. During that 8-game winning streak, they were averaging 2 home runs a game. It's a franchise that is long. When and a lot of teams are like this. When you hit the long ball, you're a different team. They're not hitting it. They've gotten good enough pitching, in my opinion. It hasn't been great all the time, but it's been pretty good. I really put this 7 of 9 losses on the offense. Are you seeing anything beyond the stats, Ruben, that would explain this?
I think the question always was during the course of the season is what is this team? Because it was built to be an offensive team. I think it was pretty clear that they weren't going to be a great defensive team. The question was whether or not the pitching would be able to hold up because of how poorly they were in the bullpen last year, how, frankly, inconsistent they had been in the rotation, what their depth in their rotation was. And that was the concern for me, was their pitching and their defense. And, even throughout the first, 4 months or so of the season, you really saw a lot of inconsistencies across the board, right? They had some issues with injury. McCutchen was not healthy. He got healthy, started playing well. Things started rolling. A couple of guys, they start off with JT kind of on the DL or the IL. You had Bryce Harper dealing with like nicks and knacks. So they didn't really have their whole lineup really rolling until maybe, I don't know, mid-May or something like that. And so you just didn't really know what kind of team this was. What was this going to be? And then when they got to July and started playing, really good baseball, you thought, okay, they're finally getting into a rhythm. They're finally doing some things. All those 3 things started to mesh a little bit better. And it gave Dave Dombrowski an opportunity to add to that club with Gibson and some others, and rightfully so at the time, because they were playing their best baseball. And I think adding to it was the right thing to do. Just adding a bullpen piece, a starting piece, which is something that he had to directly deal with, and adding some defense in a guy like Freddie Galvis, because the team was a very good defensive team. So I think he addressed the things that needed to be addressed, but the players didn't respond. And when they responded, and kind of, there was, when the trades were made, I mean, they started playing okay, and then they just went south. And I think about it now, and what is the reason? I mean, all you got to do is kind of look at the history of all these players. Not any of these players have ever really been in a winning culture consistently. And there's very, very few of them who have. I mean, Kutch is playing in a couple of games. Didi maybe a couple of games that were important. And maybe Bryce a little bit. But other than that, I guess now they have Ian Kennedy. Maybe he has been. But prior to that, I mean, the core of their club, those guys have never really won, right? They've never really won. And I think that there's something to that. And Dave Dombrowski's been a winner. And I think that you're going to see some changes to the roster as we move forward in his tenure, where he is going to be acquiring people who have had the culture of winning. And even the players that come from the minor leagues. I mean, I don't think that Alec Bohm ever played for a winning team in the minor leagues. I don't believe that there's a whole slew of guys. Did Mickey Moniak ever play on a team that really won in the minor leagues? And people talk about player development and winning's not that important. Well, it is, because a mindset of winning, if you really want to have success at the major league level, it means something. Winning means something. And if you want to win, you have to have players who have either experienced it or players who are winners. And I don't know that this team necessarily has those people.
And I agree with you. In this era where we want to quantify everything with numbers, it's hard to define a winning player. But I do believe in the concept. I've seen winning players with my own eyes. I've seen guys that I thought were losing players with my own eyes. Don't ask me to define them, but I kind of know them when I see them. And I'm sure you're the same. But I have a couple of reactions to that. If the pressure of a playoff race, not even a pennant race, it's a playoff race. If the pressure of a playoff race is eating you up on August 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, then you got no shot in October, okay? No shot. So that's trouble. And I also hear you when you say not a lot of guys have winning pedigrees. And I agree with that. And I think we both were around for the 07 quick exit in October, and it really helped that 08 team. It's indisputable. I don't know I could put my finger on it, but I saw it. You saw it. It does work. But
I went through, and just not to interrupt, I went through it with the Boston Red Sox. They had some young core guys in 16 and 17 when I was coaching there. I mean, Mookie Betts and Jackie Bradley and Benintendi and others who and Bogarts Devers. And then the following years, it took him a couple of years, and then Alex Cora came on, and people talk about Alex Cora being well, I think it's the experience of them having gone through it is one of the reasons why they ended up being a world champion in 2018.
But
same concept.
At some point in everybody's career, you have to win for the first time. JT Realmuto, I got to look. I think he's 29. He was like a state champion wrestler and a state champion football player, and he's had a significant major league career now. He's been an all-star. Bryce Harper's been around a long time. This is his 11th year in the major leagues. McCutchen, Segura's been around a long time. At some point, don't you learn how to win just by playing the game, even if you haven't played a ton in October? I mean, when does it settle in without playing in October? Because guess what? July, August, and September are important too. It's a real head scratcher to me. I do believe in the experience you can gain in the month of October. I do believe it can help you, but I do believe there are other ways to becoming a winning player.
Oh, there's I totally agree with you, and I think that there's a winning culture, but you can develop. I mean, listen, I think baseball players go through 3 stages in their lives. When they get to the major leagues, they want to feel like they belong there. Then they want to kind of make their money, right? Mm-hmm. Then they want to make their money and for their family and for their future. And then finally, I think the last thing is when they realize that they're, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years into the game, they all of a sudden look around and go, wow, it'd be really nice to have a ring on my finger. And I think they go through those stages, and you would think that guys like, and I do believe this, that guys like JT and Harper and McCutchen, those guys and Didi Gregorius, I got to believe that those guys really do want to wear a ring.
I do too.
What concerns me about that, though, is when I watch what I see and the things that are going on the field, it doesn't appear that they do. Because for me, it looks like they're going about it in a way that I don't know is all that productive. You watch long swings. Everybody's trying to hit a home run. No one's trying to move a runner. There's no action on the field. When they were going well, and all they have to do is go back for a month and see what they were doing when they were in that streak. They were doing things to create wins. They were getting base hits. They were moving runners. They were going first to third. They were making consistent contact. I don't see that happening right now, and that concerns me about the whole entirety of the club. I know that there's one guy who's not in the mix right now, and Rhys Hoskins, but it can't be just one guy who does it. Everybody's got to contribute, and they were doing that for a while. I mean, you got contributions from Jankowski. You got contributions to Reyes. You get the big boys. Bryce Harper got hot. Guys were getting and pitching in, and you're not seeing that. And you're seeing basically almost everybody going to a slump at the same time. I don't know that I've ever seen that before.
Yeah. Oh, you look at the numbers over the last 9 games, and everybody's going that way. And then it was exacerbated, or even more to a struggle in Arizona. Everybody was, Harper was 1 for 11. Realmuto was like 0 for 11. Your big boys got to be your big boys. The Phillies' struggles, Ruben, have coincided with, and this dovetails nicely what you were just talking about. The Atlanta Braves are 13-3 in the month of August. They are stepping on the gas. Oh, by the way, doing it without maybe their best player, Ronald Acuna. No excuses down Atlanta. Alex Anthopoulos loses his outfield. He goes out and gets another one. Pretty, aggressive guy. I think he's a pretty good general manager down there. But they have, to me, maybe the most ultimate professional in the division, and that's Freddie Freeman. Put the team on his back. They're 13-3. There's a team, they've won 3 straight division titles. I asked a couple guys yesterday, Girardi and Realmuto, if they were fearful that the Braves could run away with this thing. And neither one of them would buy in and say they are fearful of that.
I gotta believe that they might be saying that to you, but it has to be on their mind.
I was just going to say that. I think that was like, this is coach speak, player speak, deep down inside. They got Freddie Freeman. They got Austin Riley, who's delivering. They're on a roll. They have to be scared to death that the Braves are going to run away with this thing. They know how to win.
They have in a lot of ways created a culture of winning there for many, many years.
Many.
It's something that is ingrained in them, particularly in their the player development system. And when you have that mindset, when you teach guys how to play to win, that's pretty special. And when you create that kind of mindset, whether it's the Braves way, I don't even know how they categorize it. You have the Cardinal way. We had the Phillies way when I was a GM, and prior to being a GM, when Dallas Green started that, and Paul Owens. There is a mindset of winning that is created right out of the chute, and it just perpetuates itself. And the consistency of what you see. I mean, Brian Snitker came from the organization. He knows the organization. He helped build the organization in some ways as a minor league manager, and then major league coach, and now major league manager. That whole mindset that creates, that long-term thought process. That's real. There's nothing. It's not like that's something that comes out of the sky. This is something that's real, and the reality of it is, the Braves have created it. They're back in that cycle again. They know how to win. They have guys like Albies. They have guys like Freddie Freeman, obviously. They have guys, Austin Riley grew up in that organization. When you look at the Phillies, conversely, you do not see guys who came through and matriculated through that organization. How many guys on the field today came through the organization and had that mindset? There's very few. Typically, it's almost like they have a bunch of mercenaries on the club, because what you see is guys that did not come from the Phillies organization. They did not, work their way through that organization in one way, shape, or another. You really have nobody who is an everyday player and necessarily a pitcher on the staff who came from, the Philadelphia Phillies. Neris was one of them. Suarez, I guess, is now one of them. Very, very few guys. Nola is one of them. But other than that, you don't have like a core of position players who came from the organization and were built through the organization. Rhys Hoskins is one of them. But you don't have a ton of them. It's not like you have, the Jimmy Rollinses and the Howards and the, Chooches and, the Utleys of the world, where you're building a core around, and teams like, I remember when Kansas City won the World Series. They had Hosmer and Moustakas and just guys who came through their organization and won in their organization, and that makes a difference.
I want to ask you the same question I asked Girardi and Real Muto. Do you fear that the Braves can run away with this thing?
I don't think there's any question they're going to run away with it. I believe that from the beginning. I honestly believe. Unfortunately, I believe because of all those things, unless something drastic happens in the mindset of the club, I just don't know that they can hang in there long enough. And I see the Braves kind of running away with it if they stay healthy enough. Again, for me, it's about health. And I talked about this a lot in the beginning of the season because of what happened in 2020 and the adjustment that guys had to make in 2021. As far as keeping themselves on the field, there was an inordinate number of people who were on the IL at the beginning of the season, and still, I mean, you can see people going down all the time, and who knows what the reason is, but that's a much longer conversation. I have some thoughts about that, but the reality of it is, you may win this division by attrition. So the team that stays the healthiest, I think it's going to be the team that ends up going to win this division because it's so mediocre.
And the Braves have had injury problems. I mean, they've played over them. They lost Acuna, but they've played over them. And their GM never stops trying. He went out and plugged a bunch of holes. They're playing good. They've beaten up on bad teams. They're coming off sweeps of the Nationals, who have given up. They're coming off a sweep of the Marlins, who are not, just not there. And they go to Baltimore for the weekend. And, I'm really curious to see how that game goes tonight, Friday night. Orioles are really in a bad way. I mean, they're a bad team and playing awful. And, I don't even have their recent numbers, but they're just terrible. I mean, I would expect the Braves to go in there and have no mercy on them. And that's why I think I kind of agree with you. I just get in the feel that they let the Phillies have their day, and now they're in the high speed lane, and it's going to be it's going to be see you later. And I agree with you. Brian Snitker's a great manager, man. He came through that system. They didn't go out and hire a superstar manager. They hired a manager that believes in their core values, and those guys respect him. Those players respect that guy.
Yeah, that means something, and there's no question about that. I just, this is not an indictment on the Phillies. It's just the reality. I mean, listen, to me, when you build from within, you build a culture, and you can make things pretty special. When you don't have that, it makes it very difficult to have success. I mean, there were times. I mean, look at the 1993 Phillies. I mean, that's a bunch of mercenary guys. Basically guys who came from outside the organization, other than Dutch, who was a huge leader and came from the organization. There weren't a ton of guys that came through that system. A lot of guys who came from outside the system, and it just meshed really, really well. So it can be done. So it's something that can be done, but I think there's got to be a mindset throughout the club and throughout the organization to make that happen.
Yeah, everybody's got to play as a unit, and that '93 team played as a unit. In my recollection of that crew is everybody had something to prove. Everybody was kind of on that second chance or even that third chance. Even Dutch, who was homegrown, he was on a second chance. He had struggled for a long time. The year before, he had, I think, won the RBI crown, and he was breaking through, and Fregosi really built him up. So though he was still a Philly, he was kind of on a second chance, and I think everybody was united in proving something. But as usual, we're off on a tangent. Those were great memories and a great ball club. And there's a lot of different ways to come together as a team. This Phillies team 2021 has not come together. I want to shift a little bit to pitching, talk about two pitchers who are going to pitch the first two games here as the Phillies move on Friday night over to San Diego. A big series. I mean, San Diego has lost 7 of 8. They've let everybody back in the wild card. The Cincinnati Reds, who were here last weekend, they can really hit. I see a lot of playing together on that team. David Bell's done a good job. They're only like a game out in that wild card. So it's a huge series for the Phillies, for the Padres. I mean, for everybody else. Matt Moore is going to get the start tonight. 6 no-hit innings on, was it Sunday afternoon? I guess it was his last start. I mean, it was a great job. It was really fun to watch. It was a Saturday afternoon. You were there. We were talking as it was going along. Do you get him out now? Do you take this and run to the bank? Joe got him out after 6. I would have liked to have seen it maybe go on, but I don't think necessarily with the rest of the bullpen. I don't think it was the wrong call either. I can understand both sides of it. And I had a lot of respect for Moore, the way he handled it. Just some recollections on that game, on Joe's tough decision, and just on the way Matt Moore handled it all post game.
Yeah, I mean, you can ask for more from what you got out of Matt. He was just not just performance wise, because there was a lot of question marks as to whether or not he could even get through 1 or 2 innings, and then he threw so especially well. And I think afterwards, when they talked about the fact that they took him out, he was like, "Hey, I play for the Phillies, not
right.
not." And when you make comments like that, and you can see the sincerity in the guy. And to me, there's a lot of guys who BS through that kind of stuff. You can read right through it, Jim. You've been around a long time, and players. I know players. I've sat in clubhouses when guys are just absolutely full of crap. But the reality of it is, this guy cares, and he wants to help the Phillies. I think he wants to do well for himself too. Obviously, everybody does. I mean, that's innate, right? But the reality of it is, this guy really wants to do well and wants to contribute. And he was actually, he made the statement. He was surprised he's even on the club, because when you look right down, look, through the numbers and how his performance has been, it's been terrible. But he bounced back and pitched really well, and hopefully that catapults him to throwing quality innings later on. And this is a very, very important start for him and the Phillies and the Padres, because they're such tight races right now.
I totally agree with you. He was very sincere after this game, and reflecting on the feeling walking off the mound. He was booed off the mound like 4 nights earlier. This time he's cheered nonstop throughout his 6 innings, no hit innings. He just basically said the feeling was as good as you could imagine it would be. He wished he could bottle it. So he pitches against Blake Snell on Friday night out in San Diego. Ruben, I guess deep down inside, it's a tough business. Baseball is a cold-hearted business, but I'm thinking the Phillies really hope this is Matt Moore's last start because Zach Eflin's going to throw a rehab up at Reading on Saturday. They need Zach Eflin to pitch like, a top 1, 2, or 3, a top half of the rotation guy, a good, solid middle rotation guy. They need him to pitch that way down the stretch. They need Aaron Nola to pitch better, but you need Eflin to come back healthy and deliver. If you do, you can almost feel like the semblance of a decent 5-man rotation, with Wheeler, Nola, a healthy Eflin, Ranger Suarez, and Kyle Gibson, who's also going to pitch out in San Diego. So it's a big start for, Eflin's missed a month. I think if he pitches or at least feels pretty good, it might be a one and done on a rehab, but he might need another one. Something to keep an eye on. What about Eflin's importance down the stretch here in your eyes?
Oh, there's no question about it. I mean, Zach Eflin was one of the workhorses in all of Major League Baseball. I mean, he was averaging, I think, over 6 innings a start, which is a lot in this day and age, right? In this day and age, you don't have too many guys averaging over 6 or 7. And so he was a workhorse for him. Now, he had made some mistakes over time, and he wasn't super consistent, but he's got the ability to shut down a team for 6 or 7 innings, and that is absolutely critical. And, at the beginning of the season, the thought was that they had a really good, strong top 3 of the rotation. Anytime you get a guy like that back, I mean, that bodes well for the team. Hey, the reality of it is, even if Moore pitches really well and Zach Eflin replaces him in the rotation, they need Moore to be able to pitch in the bullpen as well. I mean, they need some depth there as well. I mean, it's not like you don't need pitching. You can always use more pitching. And if he's throwing well and he's confident and he's be able to come out of the bullpen and get important outs, then that's a plus as well.
No question. It's like the old saying, if you hit, they'll find a place for you. And guess what? If you get outs, they'll find a place for you somewhere.
Absolutely.
And they're hoping to get Rhys Hoskins back one of these 3 days in San Diego. I know he's had some ups and downs. He's had a couple notable down slumps this year, but man, still, and with the time he's missed, sad commentary on the rest of the offense, still leads the team in RBIs and home runs with the time he's missed. He's a big presence in the middle of that order, big picture wise, and for the guys around him. So I asked Girardi if he's coming back Friday. He said maybe. So I guess that means they're going to test something before the game, maybe run him, see how he breaks off the bag, fielding balls, holding runners on, just see how that groins are tough, man, because you generate so much power from your core, whether you're a pitcher or a hitter. So you got to be careful, but they also need him back. So that's, and I want to move on. Aaron Nola pitches on Saturday. He's been the biggest enigma of this season. I think maybe you could even say the biggest disappointment of the season because so much was expected of him. He's got so much talent. He's pitched like 3 or 4 gems, but the rest of them are pretty mediocre, if that. Didn't get out of the 5th inning again in his last start. Hit hard, making a lot of mistakes over the plate, trouble putting hitters away with 2 strikes, trouble ending innings with 2 outs. We've kind of beaten this up all season. Anything new jump out at you about Aaron Nola?
It's the same old thing, Jim. He's never pitched. He doesn't pitch down below in the low part of the zone. All you got to do is look at any stat cast thing. Look at it. Everything is up in the zone. Aaron Nola should have had pitches that are working down in the zone. There is such an emphasis of throwing the ball up in the zone now to swing the pitch over the launch angle swings, that I think that there are some pitchers, and in this case, Aaron Nola, he has forgotten or can't mechanically get himself to work down in the zone. And to me, it is uncanny that I don't understand, or the man who's that athletic and he's got very good baseball IQ, and they have a pitching coach who's supposed to understand pitching and that sort of thing, that they can't get him to mechanically change. If I'm a hitter and I know I'm late, and this is the same sort of thing that I see in a lot of hitters, Alec Bohm, for instance, and I know I'm late to the zone on fastballs every time, I'm going to do something with my body, because I'm athletic and I'm a major league player, to change so that I do whatever function it is mechanically better at some point. And it's been going on for months. I mean, even after the game, he said it's something that's been going on for a long time. Somebody asked him about it in his post game. He's like, Yeah, it's a mistake. It's been going on for a long time. You develop these habits. Yeah, but you got to do something to change it, whatever it is. And if someone asked, have you been looking at tapes? Have you looked at tapes from before? He said, yeah, but your body changes, and
Mhm.
your movements change. Well, part of that's true. I don't disagree with that. But the reality of it is, there was a time when he could fill up the zone at the bottom part and at the top part of the zone. And I do not see him being able to command his fastball in all four quadrants, which is what made him such a good pitcher when we drafted him and when he was pitching at the level he was pitching at in 2018.
Ruben, I almost feel like it has to be mechanical, and here's why. And very, very subtle, mechanical issues. But at this level, a little bit can mean a lot. This is the greatest league in the world. But I almost feel it has to be mechanical for this reason. I think Aaron Nola is smart enough and experienced enough that he knows where he has to get the ball down in the zone. He knows that. He's had good results with it. And I just feel like maybe he can't. And something mechanical is preventing him from doing it consistently. It makes me question the work of the pitching coach. Yes, they can digest the data and tell you about approaches and shape pitches and do all that stuff. But can they teach? Can they fix you? Can they pull you out of a sinkhole when you're in a problem spot because of your mechanics? Can they coach you out of it? They can show you the spreadsheet and all the stuff that works great, but you can't get to the stuff that works great if you're not executing pitches, if you're not executing the mechanics that made you a good pitcher. It makes me scratch my head about the art of teaching at the big league level, and if it's really affecting Aaron Nola big time this season.
And listen, you've had like what, 5 pitching coaches in the last 5 years? I mean, they've rotated pitching coaches a lot, different philosophies and thought processes and things like that. That can be confusing to pitchers. I just know as a major league athlete, listen, I wasn't a very good hitter. I couldn't adjust to breaking pitches. I just couldn't do it. I didn't have the ability to do it from the left-hand side. Right-handed, okay. Left-handed, couldn't do it. I just didn't have the ability to do it. These guys have the ability to do things, and that's why it was a concern early for me, because what I saw is him working underneath the baseball a lot, and I was worried about whether he had a shoulder or elbow problem because he was not able to stay on top with his fingers or whatever the case may be with his arm action to drive the ball down in the zone. And I thought and for me, I thought initially it was a health issue, that he was just not able to physically do it. But I don't think that that's the case necessarily now, because he continues to pitch. He's got some life on his fastball. I mean, when he pitched against LA, I mean, he was throwing, 94, 95 with life up in the zone. And even in that game, I mean, he pitched a lot better, but and located better, but he had better snap on his breaking ball, but he still pitched up in the zone. Fortunately, he pitched over the barrels there and stayed out of the middle of the plate. But he still didn't consistently get the ball and drive the ball down in the zone when he had to.
Larry Anderson has said that all season long, that
we talked about it a lot. Yeah,
he's under the basement. He's here instead of here, and there's a big difference. I'm gonna, something I've been thinking about here, and you might actually laugh me right off the podcast here, but I believe there are a lot of elements that go into leading a pitcher from a coaching standpoint. I believe that all the data and the pitch shaping has its place, but I also believe that sometimes a good set of educated eyes and somebody who knows mechanics and can teach. I believe in the art of teaching, even at the big league level. And they got a guy in this organization named Rafael Chavez, who I think is the best teacher of pitching in the organization. And he's been totally pushed to the side. He's still a member of this organization in the minor league system. I would bring him up. I bet Pat Gillick would do this too. I would bring him up and I would say, Rafael, I want you to sit behind the backstop, or I want you to sit wherever you want. I want you to watch every pitch Nola throws for the next couple starts. I want you to go over every video, and I want you to dig into this guy and help us fix him mechanically, because he's consistently under the ball. I want you to fix it, and I want you to, you're a resource for us. You're a teacher. I want you to throw some old school at us, some old school teaching, and see if maybe this is what gets him over the hump for a big September. You know, you might laugh at that, but I believe in using all your resources. And I just wonder what a guy like that could maybe do for Aaron Nola.
I think he'd be very helpful. I don't know that he's still in the organization. I know he's been kind of pushed aside. I did spend some time with him. He didn't really talk very much about his situation. I think he's disappointed that he's no longer part of what he was doing as a pitching coordinator. But frankly, I don't know that he is part of the organization still. But because I don't think he's there on a day-to-day basis anymore. But you know, anytime you have somebody who's teaching, again, Jim, you say the right thing. You want to be able to utilize all your resources. I mean, I was tagged as a guy who didn't, want analytics. That's absolutely incorrect. What I wanted to do was make sure that I understood analytics before we jumped into it. And I was in the process of doing that when things kind of changed over. I know we were late to the dance there, but the reality of it is there are certain basic things that you have to be able to do as a baseball player that are well beyond analytics. And if you don't have those foundations, then you're lost. And I think some of those foundational things are being lost in the mix here because of what's going on as far as, pitch shaping and things of that nature. And I think you're right. There's teaching, there's resources, there's all types of information that should be utilized. And anytime you can have a good teacher and have people help a player, it's just like anything else. We're all individuals. We all do certain things well and certain things poorly. And you want to maximize a guy at things that certain guys do well, and you want to try to improve the things that they do poorly at any level. And so for me, it's utilizing analytics, it's utilizing teaching, it's utilizing different types of methods to try to get there. And I don't disagree with you. I mean, anytime you can teach or bring somebody or a resource. I remember bringing Brian Price into the organization when he left the Arizona Diamondbacks because he was a resource. This was not a slight to the other guys in the organization, but if you have a resource and you have somebody who knows pitching or knows hitting or whatever the case may be, why not bring that guy in to help?
I just remember how Nola responded to teachers of pitching, like Bob McClure, who I thought was great, like Rick Kranitz, who I think is great and is now doing great things in Atlanta. He's always responded to those types of guys. And I just wonder if he's so important here the last 6 or 7 weeks, if that might just be worth it. It might not work, but I mean, who knows? But I think we both agree that whether the pitcher does it himself, whether the pitching coach, Caleb Cotham, gets him going, whether just a good start gets him going, he needs to get going.
Yeah, and listen, and these are all very good players, and unfortunately they're struggling and not really consistent right now. You hear some of the podcasts, some of the post game stuff, and people talk about almost every single night when they lose is consistency and lack of consistency. Well, guess what? That's what makes a player be either mediocre or good to great is consistency. And if you're not building that consistency, then they're just okay players. They're not necessarily championship players. And I think anytime you can improve in any way, shape, or form, I think it's a plus. As far as the hitting is concerned, same sort of thing. You can't teach every single guy to hit the same way. You can't teach every single guy to pitch the same way. Everybody has their own abilities and challenges. And to me, it's an individual thing. And I think the coaches and the people who are instructing who can recognize, okay, this is what this guy does to have success consistently. And this is what this guy does when he's struggling. Anybody who can recognize and to help them get into that more positive mode, that's the real teacher. Yep.
We've talked about this before, but the cookie cutter approach, and I think I told this story on the podcast long ago. You were on with me, but when they signed Julio Franco, your dad signed Julio Franco, he had the bat pointed at the pitcher, and they put him in the Phillies organization, and Granny Hamner was the minor league hitting instructor, and your dad said, Granny, don't touch him. I love that story.
I mean, same thing, guys. That Gary Sheffield. I mean, Gary Sheffield. Who's going to teach? or Jeff Bagwell when he was, and then all of a sudden in Houston, you saw certain guys like trying to hit like Jeff Bagwell. I'm like, what are they doing? I mean, listen, guys have their own style, their own abilities. And Josh Donaldson all of a sudden hits a lot of high home runs. And with this launch angle stuff, then everybody thinks that, everybody should go to the launch angle. I mean, certain guys can do certain things. Other guys can't. I mean, you think Scott Kingery's sitting there looking, saying to himself, I know I can do this really, really well. It's just not going to happen. And I think that the people have to understand that you have certain abilities as an athlete, and there's certain foundational things you have to do as an athlete, but not everybody's the same. Everybody does it differently.
Take what you do well and do it. And that's why Aaron Nola needs to pitch in the bottom of.
Here's a perfect example. I remember going to Chicago, and my dad was the infield coach in Chicago for like 4 or 5 years. During the years, actually, he had a lot of success there, and went to the playoffs and stuff for the first time in a while. Ryan Sandberg was a second baseman. Ryan Sandberg has a style of fielding that nobody on the planet would ever teach. He had such interesting hands. He pushed the ball, pushed to catch the baseball. And my dad would say, you can watch Ryan Sandberg, but don't watch him catch a ground ball, because he does it differently than you could do, because he has such incredible hands. He said, watch the way he throws and watch his pivot and watch his double plays and watch how consistent he does, but don't watch him, catching the baseball, because nobody can do this. And I mean, that's a perfect example. He's a Hall of Famer and a Hall of Fame, athlete. And so, I mean, everybody does things differently, and that's the way this game should be. And that's the way it should be for all athletes. There's a reason why they were born with this kind of athleticism.
Amazing. Well, Ruben, it's always great talking baseball with you. I just absolutely love it. And I think we both agree the Phillies are at a crossroads here, and the Braves are putting the pedal to the metal. They know how to win. They have talent. It's a worrisome time for the Phillies and Phillies fans. They go to San Diego for 3 Friday, Saturday, Sunday, then a day off Monday, and then 2 back home against a very good ball club in the Tampa Bay Rays. And then those Arizona Diamondbacks come in for 4 games, and they just swept the Phillies. So we'll see if the Phillies have a little something for them next week. We'll see if it really even matters. There's a big weekend, both in Baltimore where the Braves are, both in San Diego where the Phillies are. Ruben, thank you. Enjoy.
Yeah, Jim, as a fan, I got to tell you, I want these guys to do well. They have talent. They have ability. I hope they turn it around. I'd love to see them have success, because it makes broadcasting fun. It makes, being a Phillies fan fun. I have a great deal of respect for a lot of the people in the organization, and I just hope they get back to where they were, because they have the ability to do it. It's just whether or not they can swing things around again. No
question. It's more fun to watch, but either way, I'm enjoying that. You're bringing it on the post-game show. You're bringing that passion and that emotion. You've gotten rid of that, the GM speak and the calm, cool exterior. You're not quite Ricky Bo yet, but everybody. I
don't want to be Ricky Bo. That's Ricky Bo.
Michael, they got a lot of emotion, but this little slump the Phillies in. You've been bringing it, brother. So thank you very much. Thanks for being on the. You love coming on this podcast. It's one of the bigger ones globally. It's known everywhere in the world.
Well, it's outstanding because baseball, man, and your passion for the game always comes out too, Jim. I appreciate you having me on.
All right, buddy. Take care. We'll see you at the ballpark. Thanks for listening to Phillies Talk. We had a good time. Catch you next time.